So I'm back. I wanted to talk a little bit more about assessing the quality of open educational resource-based wikis. And as I continued down my path and researching the topic, I figured, hey, if I'm going to write about it, I might as well give some background on the topic too. So it's really important to get your head around the idea of open source. Now, open source is just this great group of people who are doing a whole bunch of work and they're putting it out there for free. They're contributing, they're making changes, they're coming up with new ideas and just putting it out there. It's really a whole new approach of looking at things. The whole point is that it's out there, people change it, they come to agreement, it settles down, it's great. Linux operating system is based on open source. There's an amazing amount of great software that's based on open source. You get software to do just about anything you want now with open source software. What's also neat is open source has moved into many other areas. Open educational resources is one of those. The thing that's neat about open source is the culture around open source. The culture and the decision making, and how do you do that with different people and different agendas? When I think about all the conversations I've had with people and when we don't agree, and how often do you actually end up agree to disagree and actually come up with a decision to compromise and say, okay, let's let it go, but let's move ahead. That's what's so cool about open source. Now contrast that to a centralized approach. How do you get away with making a decision at a global level, good luck, when you got a centralized approach? And now start thinking about the amount of information we got flying around out there. What do they say? Information doubles on the planet every 18 months, something crazy like that. Well, the whole point here is that when we've got a huge amount of time critical and high quality information, how do we check that it's of high quality? How do we check that it's valid? How do we deal with differences of opinion? And how do you do all that in a centralized approach? It's not going to happen. So this is the cool thing about open source. And this is the success of Wikipedia. You've got millions of people around the planet editing the same area or a series of pages, and they come to agreement, and the quality just increases. Again, we have an unprecedented volume of information creation going on right now. And we need a whole bunch of information quality practices that are going to be built into the tools that are creating this content, or all this information. I'm going to go back to this idea of open educational resources. We got a bunch of people, and it's a growing bunch of people, that are starting to build open educational resources, putting it out there for free. They're hoping people from all over the world are going to change it for the local context, if that happens to be their culture or their language. Hey, I could set up some lessons that are going to teach basic counting, and I'm going to do this up in Nunavut. That might be an idea to teach them how to count with snowballs. So I end up creating a whole bunch of open educational resources about basic numeracy skills. I'm going to use examples of snowballs, snowman, maybe some skidoos, stuff like that. I don't think those examples are going to apply in Uganda. So you got somebody from Uganda who's going to turn around and take all the work that I did in counting and put some new examples around that. Maybe they're going to use something that's locally relevant to their culture. It certainly ain't going to be snowballs. So anyways, that's the idea of open source, open educational resources. We've got a whole bunch of tools that are supporting the building of that. The one thing that I think is really important is we've got to make sure that the whole quality aspect is built into the tool, so it makes it easy. The other thing that's just really kind of flipping me out is that you're listening to this video. I don't even know where you are. I'm also thinking about the graduate studies that I'm doing. And the place that I'm doing the graduate studies is 4.5 hours from here, meaning time zones, not travel time. It's like 4.5 hours. It's the other side of my country. And I'm taking courses from there. We got this whole concept of cross-border education also. It's huge. We got different people from different countries taking courses in other different countries, and they never even been to the university that they're attending. And they're doing it all online, and they're getting some really good quality work. The one thing that's interesting about this cross-border education is people are starting to ask a lot of questions about quality when it comes to cross-border education. How do you assess the quality? What is good quality? Is it the quality of the institution? Is it the quality of the instructor? Is it the quality of the materials? But then if the localized context happens to have a lot to do with the quality of the materials, what's the point of me taking a course from Uganda when I don't understand what it's like to live in Uganda? How could I even really get into the examples? Maybe I should go back to going to school in Nunavut, where I can learn about snowballs. But the point being is that I can take courses from anywhere in the world, and we got people thinking about the quality also in a cross-border situation. So, in 2005, UNESCO published a whole bunch of guidelines about educational quality in cross-border situations. So we've got this major global player, UNESCO, and they've got some guidelines that are out where we can use as a framework, a starting point of how to assess and build quality into the institutions that are creating cross-border educational materials. Very cool. So I drew on this as an example to start thinking even deeper about assessing the quality of open educational resource-based wikis. Now the one thing that's neat about educational resources is that they're open. Anybody can copy them, anybody can reuse them, anybody can alter them. You can derive from them. You can take a little bit of it and use a little bit, create your own. You've got a whole new educational resource. If you want to, you can publish it back out to the internet so somebody else can use it and somebody else can copy it, reuse it, alter it, derive from it. And all of this without cost. That's the neat thing about open educational resources. So, with open content, seems like a really useful thing to do. Now, we just got to make sure it's of high quality and has locally relevant content.